Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Thunder Today YouTube channel. I am your host, Dylan Hibbard, and in today's videos, we're just going to kind of review what has happened over the weekend, including who the Thunder's draft picks were. Thunder trade went down, actually nothing major, but just kind of moving some roster pieces around. And then we'll kind of talk about some trade rumors that we've talked about in the past couple videos that we'll kind of revisit, and we'll kind of get into some of that. I've seen some of the comments talk about like who you guys don't want to trade and who you think could be a possibility for the Thunder. So we'll kind of get into that. But first off, the NBA draft was this past week. On Wednesday night was the first round, and then Thursday night was that second round. And the Thunder drafted in the second round. We really weren't expecting in the draft. We thought they would kind of trade it to some other teams, kind of just because of how our roster is constructed. There wasn't really any room for that needed. But the Thunder did select Brooks Barnhizer at 44th overall. He is a guard out of Northwestern. And from all the reports I've seen, what I've seen from him, he's a really gritty and like grind guy. So kind of just what the Thunder are needing, or kind of how they build around, is just a gritty guy who gets in there, plays defense, gets your steals and blocks, and just plays really high quality defense, and then is able to grow his offensive game, and he's really able to move off the ball. He's able to get downhill, and I think this is just another one of those Thunder projects where Sam Presti saw something that probably other 29 GMs didn't see, and he took him at 44. Because if you look, whenever Presti, at this point in the Thunder course, if Presti is making a pick in the second round, and especially so late, such as 44, so you're middle of second round, about dead middle in the second round, Presti sees something that a lot of people don't. And for us as fans, we just kind of have to trust that. And we know Presti will draft guys are based on potential, and if they can hit that potential, they'll just be added right into the rotation and contribute at a high level. I mean, you saw it from AJ Mitchell last year. You drafted Topic, you knew he was going to be out all year, so you got another guy who can really just play high quality defense and still be a contributing factor on offense. And I think that's what AJ Mitchell was a lot last year. So to draft another guard is, I feel like he's going to be a big like G League type guy. I think he's going to start out in the G League for us, and I think if we run into some knock on wood, some injury problems or whatever, I think he has a chance to kind of climb up into rotational minutes. But just from a guard perspective, when you already have Shea, we'll count Dort as a guard just because he kind of plays the two in the starting lineup. You have Shea, Dort, Wallace, Caruso, Topic, Mitchell as your first six guards. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility. I mean, we probably weren't expecting AJ Mitchell to be a big contributor at the beginning of last season, but we saw what he did before he went down with that season injury. But I feel like Barnhizer is going to be a guy who grinds out, and if we can figure out a way to get him in the rotation, I think he can be a big contributing factor to what the Thunder want to do at this time next year. And then we'll kind of revisit who the Thunder's first round pick was. Thomas Sorber and Brooks Barnhizer were both in OKC on Saturday. They both did their rookie signings. They kind of got shown around the facilities and all of that. And, I mean, with the media talking to them, talking to Sorber, talking to Barnhizer, it just, from the looks of it, on the Mark Dagnall sign, the same Presti sign, and all the teammates, they are really high on Thomas Sorber. They were loving how aggressive he is, how he was able to, how he plays so physical, and that's what the Thunder like. They play high quality physical defense, and to get a guy at 15 after you just won the NBA Finals, I think is a big thing for the Thunder, because not only when it's time this time next year when you have to pay J-Dub and Chet and Shea's going to get your Supermax, to have guys that you can, when you win a championship and you're the first pick out of the lottery at 15, and you're able to get a guy such as Thomas Sorber, who is physical, who can block shots, and is so versatile on the offensive end, who can slide in right there and kind of replace your Hartenstein whenever that time comes in 2 years when Hartenstein's up and you're not going to be able to pay him. And I think that's exactly what the Thunder are looking for. I think, I mean, Sorber said it yet. I believe it was Saturday when he was getting interviewed, that he's looking forward to he's already talked to Chet and Hartenstein, and he's looking forward to not only learn the big things from them and how to approach an 82 game in a NBA season, but also the little things on how big man stuff works. And I think to be able to learn from a vet in Hartenstein and then a up-and-coming star as Chet, who's already kind of dealt with a bunch of different injuries and bumps and bruises and all that, I think if he can work with them throughout this summer and into the fall, beginning the season, I think Sorber can be a tremendous piece on the defensive end, and I definitely think he can be a massive difference maker on the bench side of things. And speaking of, at the time of this recording, when I was recording this, the Thunder have just re-signed Jaden Williams, not Jada, but Jay Will, to a 3-year, $24 million contract extension. Jay Will and AJ Mitchell are up for whether the Thunder will re-sign them or let them go. They did extend Jay Will 3 years, $24 million. We kind of saw this coming. Jay Will's just kind of one of those guys where he's the energy guy in the locker room, and he brings all the vibes to the team. So I am so happy for this extension. I think he is such a good locker room guy, and he provides so much presence. And I mean, hey, he provided big minutes in that Denver Nuggets and Memphis Grizzlies series early on in these playoffs. He just didn't get as much running time later when you had the Wolves and Pacers, who play a lot faster, have more guard and forward-oriented players off the bench. So at that rate, you would start going to your Kenrich Williams, Aaron Wiggins more than you did Jay Will. And this is also a very tradable contract. Say in 2 years, however the team might look, if you need to get off of an $8 million contract, you can trade Jay Will for a couple seconds or possibly even a first, depending on how well he's played that contract. So I just think this is another high-quality and tradable contract. We saw it last season when Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins both signed their 4 or 5 year extensions that were only around 40, 50 million. So what the Thunder are doing, and how I think, or why I think they can be in a dynasty setting, is they're extending these guys early on that are on the bench, but they're extending them in contracts that are very tradable. So if the time comes where it's just not working out and we need to get off those guys, you have these tradable contracts that any team will be willing to take, and they'll give up more picks where you can just keep retooling and building around your big three of Shea, J-Dub, and Chet. So, I mean, I love what Sam Presti and the Thunder have been doing on the extension side, the drafting thing. Everything's flowing well for the Thunder, and I just can't wait to see kind of how it all progresses. And then we'll talk about the first move the Thunder have done in the offseason is they have traded one of their first round picks last year, Dylan Jones, to the Washington Wizards. The Wizards gave up a second round pick in Colby Jones. The Thunder just waived Colby Jones right away. So the Thunder were just clearing up a roster spot to bring in Sorber and Barnhizer. I'm assuming Barnhizer will fit in right where Dylan Jones was. So Dylan Jones was I believe he was a 24th overall pick last year in the first round. Thunder traded multiple second-round picks to get into the first round to draft Dylan Jones, and he really just didn't get the running minutes the Thunder were probably hoping for and he was hoping for. So this is just a thing to move on from a roster spot and kind of get him out of there and just get assets down the line. And I just hope for the absolute best for Dylan Jones. I actually met Dylan Jones in OKC during last season. He was at an OKC pet store, and he was looking for a dog, so it was kind of cool to see that. But now Dylan Jones is going to be moving on to Washington, and the Thunder just get more assets and more draft picks down the line for him in the matter of fact of a second-round pick from Washington. And then kind of finally, we're going to go over some rumors that the OKC Thunder have been involved in this offseason. We talked about it a couple videos ago. I think the big thing in this offseason that the Thunder will be linked to is Cam Johnson. We talked about many different packages that the Thunder could throw out there for multiple free agents. I talked about Joe, Wiggins, Dort possibly being in trade rumors, and you guys have expressed your opinions how you don't want to trade Wiggins, you don't think Dort should be traded and all that, and I completely agree. I don't want to trade Wiggins. I think Wiggins could, because I think if we trade Wiggins instantly averages 20 on, say, the Wizards or an Eastern Conference team or one of these lower Western Conference teams, and I don't think the Thunder will. I think your three most likely trade candidates this offseason are Isaiah Joe, as much as we would hate it because he is our best three-point shooter, and our three-point shooting was one of our probably the weakest point of our entire team last year was our three-point shooting. So I wouldn't be surprised if we keep him around and let him continue growing that three-point shooting role. But if the right move comes along, I could very well see Joe being one of the main pieces in that. I see Joe. I think Ousmane Dieng is a very likely possibility to get moved. He's making $6 or $7 million for a guy who's not probably going to make rotational minutes. I think if you can get off that, clear up that extra room for when you do want to extend J-Dub and Chet. And I think a third one is Kenrich Williams. I think I talked about it throughout the entire playoffs. He is a great rebounder. He's a great guy who went in there during the Pacers series at a couple games and played 8 to 10 minutes, but played those high-quality minutes where he was guarding a Siakam and he was getting those high-quality rebounds. But I think he's a very likely trade candidate just because now that you have Sorber and you have Wiggins, I think Sorber kind of fits in to where J-Will was, and I think J-Will kind of takes over that Kenrich area where J-Will kind of transition into a stretch 4 or a stretch 5, and kind of when he's out there, he's going to stretch the floor out kind of what Chet does. And I think there's just not really much room for Kenrich anymore unless the Thunder see it otherwise. I think Kenrich, Ousmane Dieng, and Joe are your most likely trade candidates. They all have very tradable contracts in that $6 to $10 million range, where if the Thunder just want to free up some room to extend your big three this next season, I think it's a very likely possibility, especially come the trade deadline, if there might be some teams that are wanting to buy or are giving up more than what they would want to get a piece, where the Thunder could maybe trade Ousmane Dieng for a couple of picks, including a first-round pick. Maybe you get a first-round pick out of Kenrich, and you just keep repeating the cycle. So I think those are your three main trade candidates. I don't see Lou Dort getting traded. I think he's kind of your fan favorite, the guy who's been around since 2020, since the Chris Paul and early Shea days. I think Lou Dort's safe to go, but don't be surprised if at some point throughout this year or next year the Thunder just have to kind of move on because of how the first and second apron and how the CBA has put stuff in where it's so much harder to keep guys around. And I know as Thunder fans, we love to stay with our team, and maybe it can work out that way. Maybe one of the big three takes a smaller pay cut where everybody can stay together, but we're just not promised that a lot of people will go for the money and just kind of want to do their own thing, but we'll kind of see what happens from there. That will be it for today's video, guys. Let me know what you think down below about the Thunder's draft picks. Are you excited about Thomas Sorber? What do you think about the Barnheiser second-round pick? Do you think he can make a contribution at this point, at any point this season? But this will be it for me today, guys. I hope I see you guys in the next one. Peace.